All right, so there's a bar on the ground floor of the Fifth Avenue Trump Tower in Manhattan that was recently retrofitted. It is now called 45 Wine and Whiskey and is basically a Hard Rock Cafe knockoff where visitors can enjoy walls plastered with Trump presidential memorabilia that the ex-president must have snuck out of the White House in suitcases. If you go there, you can enjoy $25 cocktails and $45 cheese plates while sitting underneath a giant framed picture of Donald Trump and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. That'll get you hungry, right? Or beside a photo of Trump holding a newspaper touting his acquittal in one of his impeachment trials. Now, the centerpiece of the bar is this display case. It's full of random knickknacks from Trump's time in the White House, including a copy of the trade deal he signed, a Space Force seal, a Trump football, and this folder marked classified. Now, we cannot say for certain the reason Trump was hoarding documents in his Florida retirement home, but we do know that today a Florida judge unsealed more information about the document seized from Mar-a-Lago. And according to a DOJ filing, the FBI retrieved more than 100 documents with classification markings, ranging from classified to top secret, in the search of Trump's property. The document also lists hundreds of press clippings retained by the ex-president, as well as dozens of, quote, empty folders with classified banners. That's a weird one, to say the least. Many people have been scratching their heads as to why Trump took so many empty folders marked classified. The truth is, we don't really know. We may never know. One theory that seems at least plausible, if only because it's the dumbest possible reason, maybe he was hoarding documents in Mar-a-Lago to use them as decorations at his new hotel bar? Chuck Rosenberg is a former U.S. attorney and senior FBI official who's been following Donald Trump's potential legal trouble as closely as anyone, and he joins me now. That detail was the big detail that jumped out from the list that was unsealed today. What do you make of the piles of empty classified folders?
Well, like you, Chris, I think it's a bit of a head scratcher. We don't know if those folders were empty when they were taken out of the White House. We don't know if they were emptied while at Mar-a-Lago. We don't know if the classified documents strewn around Mar-a-Lago came from those empty folders. But like the other stuff that the FBI found, it's concerning because we know Mar-a-Lago is a huge counterintelligence target. We know lots of people are roaming around. I understand that some of this stuff was under lock and key, but it doesn't seem to have been, well, I'm confident it wasn't properly secured. So yeah, maybe it's a decoration for his bar. It's a head scratcher. I agree with you.
The last time I had you on, we were talking about, the unsealing of that of the affidavit, which was redacted, and what evidence was presented in there. And we were talking about the fact that, you say there's probable cause of a crime. We search, we find the evidence we were looking for, some form of it. And you made the important point, right, that were you to prosecute and indict, you'd have to prove something more than just that, right? You'd have to prove that the individual who you're prosecuting, in this case were it to be Donald Trump, was the one who had control of those documents. He took them, he had them in his possession, he was the one doing the willful act here. Right. Since then, we've gotten more evidence, right, in the form of that brief filed by the DOJ that says some of the documents were in his desk. They were mixed in with his personal things and effects, like his passports. And I wanted to return to you in terms of where you see that and that evidence in terms of building a case possibly against the ex-president.
Sure. It's a great question, Chris. So if the stuff is just in the basement, perhaps he can credibly claim that he didn't pack the boxes or move the boxes or look in the boxes. When you put the stuff in his desk drawer, right, that helps you show more clearly, I think, as you said, the intent, right? Willful possession, willful retention, whatever the statute may require. And we do that all the time as prosecutors, right? The gun under the seat of your car is more likely your gun, more likely than the gun under the seat of your friend's car. And so, the closer you are to the thing that we care about, the more likely it's yours, and the more likely or the more easily we can prove intent.
There's also the when you zoom back out, right? So we've gotten all these details and we've gotten a set of filings, but it's been interesting to watch a few Republicans, people that are supporters of the president, but who have been around classified documents and presidential records, state the obvious, that whatever happened here, he never should have had these and they weren't his. Karl Rove said this the other day. He said, look, whatever this is about, they're not his to take. Then we also have now Bill Barr saying this quite clearly. Here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
What people are missing is that all the other documents taken, even if they claim to be executive privilege, either belong to the government because they're government records, even if they're classified, even if they're subject to executive privilege, they still belong to the government and go to the archives. And any other documents that were seized, like news clippings and other things that were in the boxes containing the classified information, those were seizable under the warrant because they show the conditions under which the classified information was being held.
So it's been striking to watch people that do support Donald Trump and worked for him, you know, but who know a thing or two about how this should usually go, state the obvious, which is this is obviously a violation at the most basic level.
Yeah, I mean, here's my ridiculous answer, Chris. The law is the law is the law. I mean, Bill Barr stated the law. For those of us who worked in classified environments, and maybe this will be helpful to your viewers, I hope so, we really take this stuff very seriously. And so folks might be looking at it and thinking, oh, it's not a big deal. And, you know, at least they found it and it doesn't seem to have gotten out. And he was the president after all. But the value of some of these highly classified documents are not always apparent from the content of these highly classified documents. And that may sound weird, but I can explain that, Chris. There might be something in one of these documents that you read and you think, oh my, that's sort of benign, or I wonder why that's classified. That doesn't seem all that compelling or all that important. And the information itself may not be. But the way we got it, maybe from a highly placed confidential source or from an incredible technical penetration, is. And so treating this stuff in a cavalier fashion without understanding the equities at stake, the sources and methods that might be exposed, is a very big deal. I remember reading this stuff for the first time and having that exact question. This doesn't seem all that sort of mind-bending. It was interesting, but it wasn't, you know, extraordinary until someone explained to me what's extraordinary is how we got it. And so the notion that this stuff is strewn about the house in different boxes, and there are empty folders, and some of it's in his desk drawer, and people are coming and going all the time from Mar-a-Lago, is really bad stuff. It doesn't mean it got out. We don't know that yet. And the intelligence community needs to do a damage assessment. That's really important to protect those equities I was just describing. But Bill Barr has it right. It's not his. And moreover, the stuff that's not his, if treated in a cavalier fashion, can do great damage to the national security of the United States. That's just a fact.
To your point about the cavalier nature here, there was some reporting in the Washington Post about the security concerns of Mar-a-Lago and these, you know, being in the basement. A person familiar with the club's workings spoke on condition of anonymity, described regular movement from club facilities to the basement and back. This is an operating property, person said. There's a kitchen and a guy who does pastries and a liquor cabinet. There's a restaurant here. You see activity, guy getting vodka to bring to the bar, person going to get cupcakes to bring upstairs. So I think safe to say, not exactly a skiff in there. Chuck Rosenberg, as always, great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.